welcome to a special edition of Classic Car Chat. We're here at the Orphan Car Garage with our co-host John Wingle. John, it's good to see you again. You had a busy summer.
Yes.
You weren't here most of the summer. You were off buying cars and things?
It's always a drill. Yep.
Always a
Do what you're going to do.
Yeah, well, you know, and you missed a car show a few weeks ago.
I did, and I apologize for
And,
that.
well, you were busy. You weren't even around. You couldn't do anything about it. It was at the VFW. It was a charity car show for autism, teenage suicide, and also there was a 50-50 raffle to make a little bit of money for South Shore Tech for their automotive program.
Very good.
So when we get finished here, we'll go back to that footage. It's a little older than what we're shooting today, so you'll understand when you hear some of the things that I said on that. You are having your own car show here today. What's going on here?
This is our second annual. It's a very casual event. We call it Cruise and Brews, kind of a take on Cars and Coffee. So instead of Cars and Coffee, it's Cars and Brews, one beer. We don't like to publicize drinking and driving, but we paired up with our neighbors over here at 10th District Brewery. Very casual, informal car show. Come in, show your car, have some refreshments, a cup of coffee, a water, maybe a beer, one beer. And then we've got a great food truck over here, Son of Sam Pizza, wood-fired pizza. So they were a big hit last year.
Oh, wow. Wood-fired pizza in a truck.
Pizza and a trailer. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. And as long as you're not spelling that brews B-R-U-I-S-E, which may happen if people have one too many B-R-E-W-S. So why don't we show folks some of the cars that have come in to visit today.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to take a quick turn around. We'll find a car and an owner, because we've got owners to talk to as well, which is something you've been the only owner so far on this program. We'll see some of the other folks that are out as car collectors and find out why they do what they do. John, here's our first car of the day. Why don't you take the introduction duties and introduce the owner and the car?
This is a good friend of ours, Steve Peluso.
Hi.
This is his fairly unusual, and we'll talk about why in a second, 1963 Cadillac. And you want to tell us why it's just a little bit unusual?
This is a 1963 Cadillac Park Avenue, which is 7 inches shorter than a normal Cadillac, and Cadillac wanted this car so people could park them on the street because it's 7 inches shorter. And the lady that sold it to me says, oh, well, it was the ladies' Cadillac because it was shorter. And I don't know how true that is, but they did make 1,575 in 63. I believe 63 was the last year for this model. And they made them in 61 and 62. And I didn't know that. This is basically a DeVille. The DeVille was the Park Avenue, but if you got a 61 Series 62 short deck, it was called a town sedan. I just learned that when I got this car.
And I'm surprised because the Park Avenue name went over to Buick after later.
Right.
Yes.
I was going to say, not to be confused with the Buick Park Avenue. And I would imagine it was probably marketed towards city.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Because it was a little bit shorter than the normal full-size Cadillac. Yet you have to kind of look twice to realize, wait, something's a little off.
Yeah.
And then it looks a little shorter in the back. Yeah. But otherwise, right from the quarter panels forward,
it's the same car
as a DeVille.
Yes.
Yeah.
It still wouldn't work being parked in Back Bay, though, because the spaces out there are still a lot shorter than this car.
I think they're too small for a Prius back there. But the other thing about this car that's unique to this car is the gas tank. It's got a 19-gallon gas tank where a normal 63 would have a 24 or a 25-gallon tank.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. Yeah, and so being that they made 1,575 in 63, there's not a lot of gas tanks available. Luckily, I don't need one. But this is my rain car right now.
This is your daily driver in the rain.
Yeah. I wasn't going to drive a convertible today.
I don't know if it shows on the camera, but that Cyclops there, that's an interesting option that the car has.
The Autronic Eye, the automatic headlight dimming.
Headlights. It would see oncoming, if your high beams were on, it would sense oncoming traffic, and it would automatically turn your high beams to low beams. And then when the car passed, it brought them back to high beam, or did you have to do it manually?
They automatically brought it back.
I thought so, yeah.
This is one of those fancy little things that actually worked, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it didn't actually work.
It would sense, I heard it would sense like traffic lights, street lights would actually turn your headlights down because it just wouldn't, it would be confused easy.
Very few electronic eye systems actually worked as good as they worked on paper.
Yeah.
Did I lead you into that question well enough?
Yeah, you absolutely did. The other thing this car has is power locks, which wasn't a real big thing
You're
in
right,
'63, and they're vacuum operated. They didn't work, and then I saw the vacuum line off, and I said, click, click, and they worked. I wish the car was clean, but I've been driving it in the rain because it's my rain
The weather
car.
hasn't been all that great to see.
No, it hasn't.
Well, that's all right. The camera won't see most of the dirt anyway.
That's correct. All the flaws. We like seeing cars on film and cars in pictures. But thank you.
Yeah. Well, high def is a little less unforgiving than the old SD used to be.
Well, that's correct too. You could probably see that I need a shave.
Well, you also told me that you used to do a show in one of the other
In
community
Dedham.
access
In Dedham.
stations. I was trying to avoid the name, just
well,
to stop confusing people.
We're not going to confuse people. Yeah.
So what kind of a show did you do
It
over
was
there?
a live automotive call-in talk show, and it was named after me. It was called Motormouth.
You heard it here first. No, actually, you didn't. You heard it in Dedham first. But that's great. I love those things.
In West Roxbury.
West Roxbury.
I had a shop in West Roxbury for 33 years. I now have a shop in Mendon that only deals with vintage cars, as John well knows. John doesn't have frequent flyer miles, but he's getting
I
them.
wish you were closer, but yeah, we're gonna make something happen.
Well, you can always go visit the Mendon Zoo while you're out there.
7 minutes from my front door.
Yep.
It's a great zoo.
Now, I used to go right through Mendon, taking my video gear off to be fixed out in Uxbridge. So I've been through there a few times myself.
Yeah, and so you probably went right by the drive-in, which I'm 5 minutes from the drive-in.
The Mendon Drive-In.
Yeah. I'm a mile and a half from the center of Mendon, which is probably about as big as that street sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I always thought when I was going through there.
It's a great place. If you've watched Andy Griffith in Mayberry, that's Mendon. It's 1955 in Mendon, and I love
Nothing
it.
to be said for that.
Absolutely.
And it looks more like it's 1895.
Exactly. Maybe 1885.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. I think we should go on to another car now.
Yes.
And
You've had enough of me.
Thanks
Most
for
people
bringing
do.
the work, yeah.
hopefully you'll be able to get your rain car home before the rain starts up again.
And if I don't, it's all right, because it's my rain car.
Windshield wipers work.
That's right. Even the washers work. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, here's another car that we're taking a look at. John, you want to introduce this one too and its owner?
So another friend of ours, Wayne Mullen, and he's a Orphan Car fan. What we've got here in front of us is a textbook Orphan car. It's a Studebaker. Of course, an Orphan car by textbook is a car that was built by a manufacturer that's no longer in business. We've discussed that before.
Oh, yes.
And this is a beautiful example of an Orphan car. It's a 1949.
1949.
I thought it was a 50 Studebaker.
That's as old as me.
The full description of this car is it's a 1949 Studebaker Champion Regal Deluxe Starlight Coupe. And
Say that 5 times.
Starlight Coupe is the interesting part of this car because of the rear window configuration.
Yeah, we were talking about that a minute ago. I mean, that wraparound window is really quite something to see.
Yes, it gets a lot of attention, and I enjoy this car very much. I've had many Studebakers over the years, and I lean towards the Starlight Coupes.
They used to say it was the car you didn't know if coming or going, right?
Right. I never had a problem with that, though.
Yeah. And one of the things we should talk about here is the Studebaker demise, about the fact that they were in the United States, then they kind of stopped it and went on to Canada. And
At the very end, where they closed production at South Bend in 1963.
1966.
Well, in 63 they closed South Bend and moved to Canada.
That's correct.
And then continued to 66.
Right.
They say, I don't know if it's true, but they say they only did it to carry out some of their contractual obligations with dealers and so forth.
I see.
Otherwise, they probably would have killed everything in '63.
Right, yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not, but
Well,
great cars.
They claimed that they could make a profit if they sold 20,000 units from Canada, and they didn't quite make it, so it only lasted a couple of years.
'66 was the end for Studebaker,
Yeah.
sadly. They were great cars.
Yeah, because you and I in our talking about these things said, you know, the Studebakers were a fairly well-engineered vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they were, and they actually started production making
Buggies, right?
making buggies and presidential wagons, stagecoaches, and the Conestoga wagons were built by Studebaker, and Studebaker started actually in 1852.
Oh, just after the gold rush in California, right?
They were involved in that because they made the vehicles.
And you know that was the start of a lot of westward pushing then. You know, right along those years.
Certainly was. That's true.
And like a lot of buggy makers, when people started using gas motors to drive vehicles, they wanted to get in on that too.
Well, when Studebaker first started making automobiles in 1901, 02, or something like that, they were electric vehicles for the first couple of years. And then they moved on to the gasoline-powered vehicles.
You see, electric cars are not a new thing.
Yeah, there was an electric car manufacturer in Newton, Massachusetts during those early days.
I wasn't aware of that.
I didn't know that either.
I can't remember who it was, but you know the car industry was very prominent in Massachusetts in the early 1900s.
We had a manufacturer right here in Abington.
Right.
And
Muffam.
Rolls Royces were made in Springfield.
Springfield, yes.
Yeah.
the Stanley Steamer was also made in Newton.
Yeah, that's right. I wasn't around then, though.
Neither was I. This car's probably been around a little bit longer than I am.
Really? I can't say that.
Okay, are there any features about this thing that we should kind of point out to folks?
Well, other than the rear window that we already talked about, which is definitely a distinctive feature. Engine, flathead.
Flathead six-cylinder engine. This one has dual carburetors and dual exhaust, which was not part of the original manufacture. But it's an add-on and gives me a lot more power. I go from 85 horsepower probably up all the way to 87. I don't know.
Okay, maybe we can when we finish this we can pop the hood and get a look at the engine.
I can do that if you want. You want to do that now?
Well, okay, but let's stop this interview so we can do that, because we just want to get that, reposition the camera and all that, and it's just not worth the effort of trying to do it live. So we're gonna stop this now. We'll pop the hood and we'll show you the engine. Well, we have another car here to look at. You've seen one of these recently if you've watched the show. John, take over the introduction.
You certainly have seen these before if you've been watching the show, because we're a big fan of these here. This, of course, at this point needs no introduction. The Chevrolet Corvair. Now, from 1964. Our friend Chuck Leonard owns this vehicle. And how long have you owned this car now? Quite a while,
I
right?
have this over 20 years. It's really worked out. It's been a great car. We thoroughly enjoy it, and we use it. We've been to Kalamazoo, Michigan with it. We've been to Canada with it. Driven it down to Knoxville, Tennessee, and to different conventions. You always caravan with other cars just in case somebody does have a problem. But this has never let us down yet. And I think I bought this with 46,000 miles on it, and we got just shy of 80,000 on the car now. So it's really turned out to be a great car. And the car gets you together. The people in the Corvair Club keep you together.
That's true.
And it's really turned out to be a good family to be a part of. We thoroughly enjoy it, and the people as well.
And the cars were not quite what a certain man whose initials are RN said about them.
Oh, that's very true. Ralph Nader was never a fan of this car, although he owned one
He did.
himself. It was down at the Tort Museum down
So we
in.
can prove to everybody how bad it was.
There you go. But there was other cars that had problems back in the beginning, the same as all cars that were manufactured during the 60s. And but the most of them got out of them now, and they've turned out to be a great car.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were
They've
talking
overcome a lot.
while we were kind of waiting to get ourselves into position over here. I was talking with you and another gentleman about some video that I had seen that I used on the program about the testing that they did with these cars on and off the road, and way off the road.
Yeah.
Because people who have seen that remember that there was a shot in there of the Corvair riding in the middle of a riverbed with the water flowing, heading downstream with it.
Yes.
Yeah,
They did
that's
a lot of endurance testing with it. Yep. And not once did it flip over.
That's right. And they made changes to them. In '64, one of the major changes is that they put that cross-leaf spring
Right.
in the rear end, and also a different drag link set up in the front end, and it made the car a lot more stable.
And this is one of those cars.
Yes,
they
it
added
is,
those
yeah.
features in 1964.
And you know, it was one of those things that just talking about that stability, even with the fire department laying down foam on the road during one of those trial tests, they couldn't get it to even, it didn't even skid when the guy hit the brakes. So I mean, they were a much better vehicle than certain people who we have named at least once already have talked about.
Exactly, and it's just a great car to be involved with, and again, as I said earlier, the people that also have them are great, and
They're a great, affordable.
Collector car. It's a good way to enter the hobby, because you can buy a good one for a lot less than a comparable mid-60s convertible. You know.
correct.
This coming from two guys here who happen to be members of Corvair clubs, right?
Yes, that's right.
Since 1988.
When did you join the
Shortly thereafter.
early 90s?
Yeah.
And I've always said, you know, with the styling on these things, if you didn't look closely, you couldn't tell whether it was coming or going, because other than the color of the lenses on the lights, the front end looks a lot like the back.
Very similar it does. You're right. I've never thought of it that way, but you're right.
What do they call this color?
That the color of this car is Azure Aqua, and it's a great color car. It really is. And I had this repainted probably 15 years ago, 16 years ago, something like that, and it's held up well. It's held up.
And it stands out quite nicely among all these other cars here too.
It does, yeah. Very much so.
It's always a hit at the shows.
It is. Yeah, we won many awards with this car.
And I was just noticing the wheels are also painted the same color.
It is. That's a design that I came up with somewhere along the road.
That's a personal touch.
It is just to add a little bit different to the style of the car, and I like the way that looks.
With the wire wheel covers and all.
Yes. Yep.
What was the original wheel cover that they had on this? It was kind of a dog dish type of thing?
No, it wasn't a dog. It was a full wheel cover, but it was not spoked or anything
Didn't
at
do
that
the car
point.
justice.
Yeah.
The dog dish would have been on the lesser model Corvair, which was like a 500 or a 700 model. No convertibles were available in that, no bucket seats. It was the entry-level Corvair. That would have had a dog dish, like you mentioned. But the Monza always came with a full cover just not a wire cover. This was an option.
I always had a lot of fun trying to pop those full covers off the wheels when I needed to change a tire too. The thing they gave you to pry it off would never quite fit underneath the wheel cover to get it off.
Yeah, and you could bend the cover easily. Yeah.
That's true. You could, but that worked out well though. That did.
Now this is a beauty. The white top and the azure color. It's a beautiful car. Okay, well, I think it's time for us to move on to another car. So we'll be back with you in just a moment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, now this is something that people can relate to. A lot of people have seen vehicles like this in all those old surfing pictures. And this one proves it's got that kind of bloodlines because it's got the surfboard on the roof rack. Okay, John, would you do the honors?
Another friend of ours, Todd, owns this beautiful 1967 Ford Country Squire station wagon.
Thanks.
And tell us a bit about this.
Sure. So I bought this car from a gentleman in Rhode Island in 2016. He was selling it. He had it for 18 years, did some restoration to it. He had 2 teenage sons that had their own cars, and this car was sitting around doing nothing, and he wanted to see it go to somebody who would appreciate it. So I was happy to take it off his hands, and I have had nothing but fun with this car ever since.
Did the surfboard come with it?
It didn't. Actually, shout out to my cousin-in-law, my cousin and her husband, who got me the surfboard for a decoration. I appreciate that. So one of my favorite things about this car is when you take it to a show, you generally hear 2 things from people. First is like, oh, wow, that's cool, something exciting. And the next sentence is, my somebody had one of these, and I remember riding in the back.
Well, that's what I was just saying before we started up here, because my family had one of these. It was a 55, though.
Yes.
So it wasn't quite as long as this one.
Right.
Had child-proof handles on the back doors. You lock them and unlock them with a key.
Okay.
So that we could play around with them and not have to worry about falling out of the car. When we
Very
were going off to summer camp, put down the back seat, 3 foot lockers in the back, and 3 kids on top of the foot lockers.
For sure. Yeah, I grew up with one of these too. My parents had one of these. I'm the oldest of 4 boys. I have scars on my shins from sitting in the back with my brothers, and it was just a lot of fun.
He's like, well, not to interrupt, but while I'm thinking of it, when I've been to car shows with him with this car, all he has to do is pull into the show, and he's like the Pied Piper. Everybody follows, right?
Yeah,
Follows
they do.
him to see where he's going to park.
They do.
They want to talk to him about the car. They walk by all the Corvettes and all the Mustangs to get to this car because everybody can relate. So many people can relate.
I actually, my first antique car, vintage car, was a 69 Camaro that I bought in 1988. And I sold it 2 years ago. And this gets so much more attention just because it's so unique. You don't see these. You go to car shows, and I appreciate all the cars, but you see Mustangs and you see Camaros. And I will never have a twin at a car show when I go.
And they built a lot of these, and they sold a lot of these, but they all got used up.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Second-hand cars, third-hand cars, handed down to the kids.
Yeah.
But they weren't respected. They were just kind of used up and thrown away. So to find one like this today is extremely unusual.
Other than the repaint and the new vinyl decals on the side, it's all the metal is original. The car came from Tennessee. There's not any real rust on the car anywhere. There's 2 little spots I'm actually having fixed this year. But otherwise, the interior is original, and it's just been repainted.
Well, I noticed one thing on here that isn't quite original. That's the tires, the low-profile tires.
Yes, yeah. When I bought the car, those were the wheels on the car. I have the original wheels that go, and I'm more typically a purist than original person, but I just like them on there.
Well, it certainly helps that surfer feel to it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it does.
And I was remembering too that you could get different versions of these, had different back seats. Some years they had the two side-by-side facing ones like this has.
Yes.
Sometimes they faced forward, sometimes they faced front. And everybody who made a station wagon made different versions of that over the years.
Yep.
And you said you had one like this where you were sitting across from
My
your
brothers.
siblings?
Yes. So Ford is the only one that had the side-facing rear seats. The other brands had either rear or front-facing, but Ford's the only one that had two, and it was only in the full-size Country Squire and Country Sedan.
I was saying, it's not one where you could fit 3 adults back there like some of the others were. This was, for little kids, you could stick 4 of them in there.
Strangely, Ford called it a 10-passenger, which would mean 4 people in the way back.
That's
It's a stretch, but you can comfortably fit 3 adults in the front and the middle seat, no problem.
Yeah.
And if you stretch too far, you'd be socking your sibling in the face with the fist, right?
I plead the fifth.
You have any other plans for anything else you might want to add to this?
No. I like it. I like it just the way it is. I'm not going to add anything to it. At some point, I may put the regular original tires back on just to see what it likes and drive it around and see how it feels. But until I need to replace tires, I'm not going to do that.
There's one other little piece of trivia that's been kind of bugging me since I first noticed it. That's that bumper sticker you have just inside the tailgate, says, "Hi, neighbor." Mm-hmm. I know that was a beer company that did that, and I was wondering, was that Carling?
No, it was Narragansett beer.
Narragansett.
Yeah.
Wrong again.
Yeah, that's okay. That's paying tribute to Rhode Island, where the car came from. Yeah. When I bought it, it was from Rhode Island.
Because I remember, Carling was made, they had a brewery in Natick here in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And,
Carly's
and,
Red Label, right?
Yeah.
and then
Black Label.
then they had the fancier version. It's like Johnny Walker. They had different colored labels. Remember the slogan for the Black Label was a whistle. Mabel, Black Label.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
You're dating yourself, man. Paul.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
for
I do
sure.
that a lot.
Yeah. No, High Neighbor was Narragansett beer, who went out of existence for 30-something years, and they've come back.
They've come back. Now they're trying to go
Yeah.
upscale with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, see, I could almost sing that song from that commercial way back, but I've lost some of the words, I think. One of the fun things about this car is the tailgate. It will open 2 different ways. First way, go ahead and...
Yeah. Ford called it the magic tailgate. So it opened like a door, which made it easier for people to get in and out of the back by stepping up on the bumper. And then if you were loading packages or lumber, it opened like a pickup truck. And if you fold down the back seat and these 2 side seats, you can put an 8-foot sheet of plywood flat on the floor and close the door.
Don't think you could have done that with the 55 that my family had way back when.
Yeah, I don't know the dimensions of that one, but this one, that was one of their claims to fame, was load it up and shut the door.
Okay, well, that was wonderful. It was nice talking
Nice
to
talking
you.
to you. Thank you.
And, hey, hang 10 next time you go out surfing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it won't be me, but I'll do it.
Okay, let's move on to the next car. Well, here is another car, and this time we're missing something because there's nobody between us. That's because this is a car John picked up. What are you doing with a non-orphan car?
That's why it's for sale.
Doesn't really fit the wheelhouse here, but it was too nice of a car to pass up. It's a 1966 Chevy Impala Sport Coupe. I assume you get the whole thing.
Yeah.
Sport Coupe meaning 2-door, no pillar, hardtop style.
Right. And the Impala was the top of the line for Chevy, right?
Well, in 1966, I believe the Caprice was introduced.
Oh,
so the
okay.
Caprice would have been a step up from the Impala. I think 66 was the first year for the Caprice. This would have been one step down from that.
Yeah.
And you could option these out. You could get them very basic with a 6-cylinder engine, bench seat, crank windows, sort of black wall tires, or you could luxury of them right up. This is a nicely equipped car. It has power steering, power brakes, and it also has factory working air conditioning.
Well, that's something.
Mostly because, as you can see here, the car was sold new and spent most of its life in Florida.
Yeah.
It's a very nice car.
So,
Very popular with collectors.
does that mean, with the AC, if you need to refill the coolant in it, can you use Freon, or do you have to use the new stuff?
This still has Freon in it. This still
Has the old system, the R12 they called it.
Yeah.
You can convert it. It's not a big deal to convert to the R134, but this still has the original Freon still flowing through it, and it blows cold air.
It blows colder than most modern
Right.
ACs.
I always thought the R12, the older Freons, the older refrigerants cooled the car a lot better and quicker than the newer stuff that we have.
Which is
It
why
may
they
just
have.
be in my head.
Which is why they have two compressors in a lot of cars today.
Yeah,
So you get
yeah.
AC1 and 2, and you put them on
Right.
together, and it helps a little bit more.
You can also get a lot of different engines in these cars. Order different, like I said, the 6-cylinder. You can go all the way up to like a 327 or a 427 big block. This has the small block V8. Very popular engine for Chevrolet. It was a 283 cubic inch. And to add a little bit of oomph to that engine option, the customer could check the box for what they call the power pack. So it took that 283 small block and beefed it up a little bit. Bigger cylinder heads, a 4-barrel carburetor instead of a 2-barrel carburetor, and a dual exhaust instead of a single exhaust. And I think it added about 30 horsepower to
Everything
the
but a
standard.
turbocharger.
Everything but a turbocharger, yeah. And this car is equipped with the power pack option. So it gives it a little bit more get up and go.
I've been wondering too, what is the color on this?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I
I think it's called Willow Green.
Willow green, okay, because it
They
has
changed-
that kind of feeling that there's, the champagne color that they used to use too.
What General Motors would do is they would use the same color 2 or 3 years in a row, and they would change the name of it from year to year. So in
wow.
65, this could have been called Willow Green, and in 66, they might have called it, Sunshine Green or something, but it was the same code. So I think it was called Willow Green in 66. Just don't quote me on it.
Oh, well, you quoted yourself, so I don't have to. So, it really is. It's a beautiful looking car.
It is, yeah. It's a very stock looking car. It's never had any modifications done to it like many of these have over the years. I believe it's a 2-owner car. Its whole life it's only had 2 owners other than myself. It's going to make somebody a nice car to get into the hobby with.
With the bench seats, that means it's a 6-passenger.
6-passenger, yep. With the cool speaker in the back.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
I remember those.
yeah. Sorry. Okay, thanks, Chuck.
We had a little visit there from one of our previous car people. So
He's taking
You
off
saw
and
it?
saying goodbye.
you saw his car a little bit ago, and this is just one of those cars that will do a lot for a lot of people.
Yeah, and they're very reliable. The parts for these cars, because they're so popular, are readily available. That engine, you could probably buy mechanical parts for this off the shelf at AutoZone today. I mean, it was just a lot of the parts that mechanically were used for years and years and years for General Motors. So this car is be a very easy car to own and maintain.
Okay, well, what we have to do now is we just kind of walk up the front and say goodbye to folks, because I have
Okay.
something else as a surprise that's coming along that I think I made mention of when we did the opening. Let's kind of walk up the front and say goodbye to folks, and then we'll toss it off to where it's going to next.
Okay.
Well, John, we've had a lot of fun here today. You've got a great little car show here. Hope we get better weather for next year's version.
hopefully, hopefully next season's a little bit drier than this season was.
And just to remind you from something I said earlier in the show, we have the VFW car show that I talked about coming up right behind us.
Yep.
So all I have to do is turn and face the camera and say, I'm going to throw it over to the host of the VFW car show, me. So, hey, me, take it away.
The sun's shining over there, right?
Welcome to a very special edition of Classic Car Chat. Our co-host John, you can see, is not here. He is off on a buying trip looking for cars to bring back home for people he knows and maybe for people he doesn't know yet. So I thought we'd use this event today called Classics for a Cause to help promote the causes of these people that are running this show for autism, for teen suicide, and also to help raise a little bit of money for the automotive program at South Shore Votech, because it's the kids at South Shore Votech that put this show together. So what we're going to do is we're going to wander around a little bit and see who we can get to talk to us about their cars. And at the same time, we're going to give you a little bit of information about autism, teen suicide, and the 50-50 raffle for the automotive program at South Shore Votech is kind of self-explanatory. So let's take just a little moment or two to spin around and show you a couple of who knows what kind of shots from the car show, and we'll be back in just a moment. One of the things we wanted to do first in this program was to find out about the charities that the money is going to from this great little car show here, and it is a very interesting looking little car show, I must say, from what I've seen so far. So what can you tell me about where the money is going? Who's first?
Well,
Thanks, Ken.
this event, thank you. This event was brought to you by the South Shore Technical High School's automotive program, specifically several of our son's classmates who worked so hard, tirelessly for 2 months to bring together this event, which most people would need a year to plan. So we are going to be supporting a scholarship fund for the automotive tech program at the South Shore Technical High School.
Okay. Now there's a couple of other ones that are going to get in there too a little bit. Sean, you want to speak to that?
Sure. So thematically, we want to give a bit of money for autism awareness and prevention of teenage suicide. And we've seen some things from the T. They're trying also. I think they could do more, but however, I do appreciate and see the things that they're doing by putting up the white stakes and the cross-hatching on the grade crossings, and they've put up some signage around texting or dialing 988 if you're in a crisis, and I appreciate that. And that's what this event is all about. It's about celebrating Ben's life in its entirety and not how it ended, but also we need to bring attention to the national crisis that we're facing. Last year alone, 50,000 Americans took their own lives, and we're on pace to be even more than that this year. And so if we can do anything to put a dent in that number, that's why we're here.
Okay. Can you give me just a little bit of information about Ben?
Yes, we both can.
Okay. Go ahead, Karen, you're closer.
Benjamin was a unique, one-of-a-kind person, about as kind and considerate a soul as you will ever meet, was always looking for ways to bring comfort to his friends who were in distress, was extremely supportive of people who are like him, dealing with the sense of exclusion and bullying at high schools. And he really was just touching so many people's lives that he didn't even realize how much his passing would impact the community around him. We as his family are completely blown away by the support, by the number of people who are dedicating their time to this event and want to do it in the years to come as well. So if you can motivate that many people to rally around multiple causes and things that impact our everyday lives of our children, he served a tremendous purpose in this world in his 18 short years. And we're very proud of him.
Okay, now you also mentioned something about autism. Can you give me a kind of an feeling as to what kind of programs that you're looking for as far as autism to be covered?
I honestly don't know how to answer that right now. I think we're trying to look to invest in some programs that do good things, like we've asked in lieu of flowers to donate to the Doug Flutie Jr. Foundation. They're going to be doing a concert at Fenway later this fall. So there's things like that. But again, it's just so new and so fresh that we're just still thinking it over. And Ben was in a very private and shy person, and he would be mortified to see how much attention this is bringing.
Well, that seems to be a common theme with people with autism as well, that shyness and reticence.
Well, autism's a spectrum. And so if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. Many of Ben's friends would say that he appeared very typical, but they understood he struggled. And he has friends who were also like him on the autism spectrum. But the point of the matter is that autism unto itself is not boiled down to one or two simple ways to describe someone's behavior or personality. There are lots of things that autistic kids are fabulous at. Our son was very successful in the auto tech program, rebuilt an entire engine pretty much on his own. His capabilities far exceeded his own understanding of what he could do. And unfortunately, with depression and anxiety added into the mix, which is something that we were still just getting to understand and he was being treated for, you're sort of looking at a situation that if you don't get early intervention and you don't have the resources, even though we did, and we were working with every potential and every possible intervention we could possibly pursue, sometimes it just isn't enough, especially when there's a tremendous amount of bullying going on at the high school level, and kids are afraid to advocate for themselves, and that's where autism can become a serious problem for a child like Ben. If you're not able to advocate and speak to school officials about what is happening to you personally, it'll often get shoved under a rug, and that's the other part of what we feel that this event could shine a light on. The proceeds from this event will absolutely impact bullying prevention programs as well.
Okay, yeah, because I know some folks, they have a son with Asperger's, and that is like highly functional autism, and it just goes from there. And
they've done away with all that, Paul.
Okay.
There is no longer a carve out for Asperger's as being sort of the superhuman computer that they were touted to be. They are just as vulnerable to dealing with all of the issues Ben dealt with. And Ben was highly functioning autism, but the term Asperger's has been retired. Now it is just called autism spectrum disorder.
Oh, okay, because that's something I hadn't heard. This kid just graduated from Notre Dame, too, so.
Well, again, the knowledge, the understanding, and how autism impacts a person, we are all learning. There is nobody who's a specific expert in it that can say they've seen every single case and can claim a particular expertise in every single case. They're all different. And I would say that, where our Ben was concerned, you would have met him and you would not have guessed at all that he was on the spectrum. But that's just the thing.
You might have if you have a trained eye.
If you have a trained eye. But most people don't unless you have raised a child with ASD.
Okay, well, thank you so much for giving me this information, because I'm kind of far behind things with just my understanding of it, and I actually, do know You can't use store-bought teeth. You got to have them fitted. You know, seeing his family working with him over the years that I've known him, it's just amazing how he has progressed since he was just a little kid too. Okay, well, thank you again so much. Are there any websites out there that you think people might find more information on both of these subjects? If not, I'll check something and see what I can put on there.
Well, just for today's event, the Facebook page that has been put together by the Automotive Tech students, that is the Classics for a Cause Facebook page dedicated to Benjamin Dufour. It should be easy to find. And I think coming soon, we might even have a website ourselves.
Yeah, we'll publish what we ultimately will end up doing with the money as we file with the IRS, and we'll do a total disclosure thing when we're ready.
Well, the Facebook page should be plenty to get people started anyway.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much for talking to me. Here is a car that most people thought for years was an orphan, but didn't turn out to be so much anymore. And you're
Wayne Alden. Yep.
okay. Thank you. Senior moment.
I understand.
Okay. Now, do you remember way back when Volkswagen announced they weren't going to be producing the Beetle anymore?
Not really, but it seemed to me, this is my fourth one. My last one before this was a 74 Super Beetle. And back then, I don't remember, I don't even remember when they stopped manufacturing in Germany to import in the U.S. I know it was because of smog, couldn't pass emissions. But they were still making them in Mexico right up until 20 years ago.
Well, that may have been when they finally made the announcement. When did the Bug come back? Do you remember?
I couldn't tell you. All I remember is my wife's uncle yelling at me to buy American, and I was buying German cars.
John, we need you. I know you remember when the Beetle disappeared. So you like the Bugs?
Yes. I had a 61, I called my Frankenbug, which was 61, 64 motor, 70 fenders, 74 interior. It was multiple years. And that was the best car to drive. It was painted lime green with Chevy wheels, and I had a blast driving that. I used to race it up in Epping, New Hampshire in a Volkswagen. That was my first one. Then I bought a 1970 Formula V, brand new from Silversmith Volkswagen in Brockton. I drove
Long since gone.
Long since gone. I drove that for 250,000 miles and sold it. And then I bought a 74 Super Beetle, and I taught my wife, my girlfriend at the time, how to drive a stick shift in that. And we finally sold that in 78 when the kids were being born. We needed a family vehicle, so we had to buy a station wagon. And then 42 years later, we bought this one.
Yeah, it would be kind of hard to stick several kids into a VW Bug, right?
That's right. Yeah, especially with the diaper bag, the porta potty, the porta crib, and stuff, you used to haul around with a bunch of equipment.
Yeah. Well, you can see that this trunk isn't terribly big for putting all that stuff in the first place, so you have to pile it in the back seat, and then you got no room for the baby.
That's right. And this is a bigger trunk than the standard Beetle.
Yeah,
the Volkswagen, the Super Beetle, it's bigger.
Yeah, and any VW Beetle never had an awful lot of trunk space anyway, because the way the hood just went.
You could barely get a suitcase in there.
So, any plans on what you want to do with this one or for the next one in line?
Well, I'm slowly restoring this towards original condition. I've been doing a lot of work in the engine compartment. I had to get the spare tire. This didn't have one when I got it. I got the trunk liner for it. I just recently got a line on a back seat. It has no back seat in this one currently. So eventually I hope to restore it to look more original. This is what they call a sun bug, because it's got the factory installed sunroof, the pop-out windows in the rear, which makes a big difference driving down the highway with everything open.
Well, I was just thinking that lack of back seat would be a good discipline for the kids. You throw them in the back there and make them sit on the floor.
Well, my wife likes it because we don't have to bring the kids at all.
that may be an even better use for it.
Yeah, we take it to the beach a lot. She likes to go to Wrexham Beach down in Marshfield, and we throw 2 seats and the beach umbrella you see here in the back, and we'll go to the beach. You know, everybody looks at us. We pull in the parking lot. You know, they don't see a lot of these anymore, and then we'll spend the day at the beach, and she loves that. She loves just sitting there, enjoying, letting the air flow through her hair, and have.
Well, knowing you're a Whitmanite, I can tell you my wife and all her siblings were born in, well, they weren't all born in Whitman, but they all grew up here. And her oldest brother had a house down just off of Wrexham, and the family still owns it. So if I'm ever down there and I see a yellow beetle down there, I'm going to go looking you up.
Okay, let's make a deal. My wife is a Whitmanite too. She grew up here on School Street. So her father and mother were born here, and she was raised here because she was born in Brockton. But
well, my wife likes to say she was born on the wrong side of the tracks. She was born in East Whitman, on
okay.
Pleasant Street.
Yeah, well, my wife's grandfather lived on Simmons Ave, which was on the wrong side of the tracks as well. So
we keep asking people, why is it the wrong side of the tracks down there? And they don't want to talk about it.
Well, I think that's because it's where the factories were. You had the shank shop was on this side of town, but the shoe factory, Regal Shoe, was on that side of the tracks. So
Okay.
that's where the factories were.
Well, the Bostonian was up there too.
Yeah, on the other side of the tracks too, this side.
And the Gurney Tack Factory is up on Washington Street.
That's right. Yeah, it's still that building's still there. I'm trying to remember.
Oh, it's still there. They still own it too, as a matter of fact. I haven't heard that they sold it yet, although they've been talking about it.
Right. Okay. But the shank shop is now condos. So
Yeah. Well, you know, something has to happen to everything.
this is true, except for the park. The park's still here.
And people are still enjoying it a lot.
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks, Wayne, for talking to me. It's been good talking to you.
Well, thank you very much. I've had fun too. Thank you.
This happens to be a rather unique 1909 Model A, not Model T. I remembered that much. And this is Jimmy Hamilton.
Yeah.
So I did change that and get that right eventually, didn't I?
Yes.
And I got the 1909 right?
No.
No?
This is a 1922.
22.
This is a Model T.
Yeah.
It's a center door. Yes.
Which is rather unique, because I have never in all my life seen a center door.
Yes. Yeah, they're not as common as a lot of the other cars, the touring cars and also some of the coupes. So, but this is it's a sedan, you know, and they had just one door on either side. It's you know, but it's an interesting car. It's unique on how you have to get in. It's like a clown car. It's a certain order you have to get in, so and get out. So the driver is in usually before the last passenger, who is on the up front. So,
I was talking to your son Patrick about that a little while ago. So this is a typical Henry Ford. Wants to make sure the chauffeur's in the car before he has to get in.
That's true. Absolutely. Yeah. So he's my the guy that does all he starts the car for me, and you know we still have to crank it to start this, and so he does that for me while I get the car ready, and then we're off and running.
There was an old song during the war that a very famous composer wrote, and the first part of the title was "I'm a cranky old Yank," and he's the cranky Yank right there, because he's the
cranky Yank. That's
he's
right.
he's the guy that has to the Yank that has to do the crank.
That's it, exactly. Yep. But he does it well.
Yeah. Okay, and you know, it also strikes me that it figures Henry Ford would try to come up with a car where we only had to put in 2 doors instead of 4.
Well, it was cheaper.
Yes, of course.
And that was what he was always trying to do, make it cheaper. So,
Yeah.
yep.
That was the reason. That was the reason there was only one color you could get.
That's
Do
right.
you remember his famous line about
Oh,
that?
yeah, any color you want as long as it's black. Yeah. So, but he also used to use the packing crates. He would break them down, and he was using the floorboards and stuff for the packing from packing crates when they were bringing the parts in. So he used and he reused all kinds of stuff.
He was an early recycler. Remember that about Henry Ford. because there were a lot of things he he was infamous for rather than being famous.
That's right, correct. Yeah, no, there was a lot of things that he did, but it was, it was amazing, this car here, and he made it at a reasonable price so that the people, and he also paid the people enough so that they could actually buy a car. So, and that was so that they could afford to buy something that they were making, and he wanted to get more cars out on the road, and he did it successfully with this.
Well, that's why Ford became the #1 car maker back before some of the others were even getting started.
Right, correct. So, but there was a ton of car makers, but they were all smaller. So, thanks, Vin. Take care, bud. Have a good one. Sorry.
Well, hey, that happens all the time when you're out in the public. Tell me, do you have any idea what the original list price was for this?
This was, I believe, it was either $695 or $795, brand new, and it's a little bit more than that just for parts now.
Well, not to mention the fact that, if you tried to spend $695 for a car now, you might get one wheel.
Exactly, yeah. So, but it's a fun car. It's fun to drive, and it gets a lot of looks. So, it's a lot of fun.
Okay, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thanks, Paul. Take care. Have a good day.
We found another orphan bug. Chris Rizzo, what year is this one?
It's a 1962.
62, and I understand this one is pretty much original?
It's all original, yep. But 30,000, actually in 12 miles it'll have 30,000 miles on it.
30,000 original miles?
Original miles, yes. So it's all original.
Boy, talk about the little old lady who only used to go to church.
Yes, it was actually in a Porsche collection down in Connecticut for probably about 20 years or so. So it didn't get much action for the last 20 years, and I bought it and getting it out there because people need to see it.
This is like a 60-year-old car with only 30,000 miles on it.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah, it had the original tires. It still has the original tire there in the front, but I had to put new tires on it. But yeah, it's all original.
How long have you had it?
I've had it for about 3 years now.
3 years. Oh, well, that's only a drop in its bucket, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. But, I probably put 5,000 of it, 30,000 miles on it, so which is great. It's got to get out there.
Okay. Now, what are some of the features that this has that you'd like to tell us about?
Well, what's interesting about it, it's the first year for the gas gauge, and the 61s and below had this reserve tank that if you turn the handle underneath the dash, that you got an extra liter of gas that goes into the car to get it going. So if you ran out of gas, you had that. So mine has both for some reason, but it's the birth certificate says it was built in January of 62, so maybe it was a 61 that converted to a 62. You found that out about the Volkswagens. It's whatever they had. That's why the parts were so interchangeable for so many years.
I've got a story about that. When I had a Volkswagen Dasher wagon,
okay,
but it was originally an Audi Fox. It still had the Fox logo on the steering wheel.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. It's amazing how that happened back then.
Well, to get back to the bugs
Okay.
and the gas situation,
Yeah.
people couldn't tell they were running out of gas till the thing started going.
Right. It's that sputtering a bit. Yep. It's a 6-volt system, and my original one, I don't know what this gets, but it was getting 44 miles to the gallon. I remember back in high school, I ran out of gas, and my original 63 when I had in high school, and I found 11 cents under the carpet in the car, and put that in, and I got home. So it was awesome. But that's when gas was 35 cents a gallon too.
Well, that's a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
And this one also has a sunroof on it.
It has the sunroof. It's called the rag top, so it adds a little bit more value to the car. You don't see many of those, but yeah, it's a great. Herbie the Love Bug was a 63 with the rag top. This is a 62.
What, do you know when they first started putting the rag top on?
I don't remember when they started putting on. I believe 63 or 64 was the last year for it, though. So it's those cars were evolving very quickly back then.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking to us about your beautiful little bug here.
I appreciate it.
And-
Thanks, Bessie, and I appreciate you talking to me.
Okay, just keep the flit away from Bessie. We don't want to kill her. Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, thank you, sir.
This car that we're looking at now is one I remember seeing years ago down at the South Shore Votech which it was called in those days, car shows. And the owner was here, Hal Marshman. Hal, I knew as soon as I saw this come on the land that I had seen it down in Hanover.
It was in Hanover. It was like a primer gray at that time with a Hemi Hunter on the door. It's the same car, just different paint.
Just different. Well, I'm got to tell you, this paint looks a lot nicer than the gray you had on there.
Well, thank you very much. It was a lot of work, a lot of time, and the guy that did it's a 35-year-old kid, and he knocked it out of the park.
It is beautiful. So what is the car?
The car is a 1941 Willys Coupe, and I have it built as a gasser.
Willys Coupe. There's another orphan car for us all. Because Willys doesn't exist anymore.
That's correct. That's I think AMC ended up buying them out, and then AMC got bought by Chrysler. So, yeah.
Chrysler or whoever owned Chrysler at the time.
And I think that's Fiat now, right?
Yeah, I don't. They do an awful lot of trading around of those things.
Yes,
these
they
days.
do.
So, let me ask you, what is that big hunk of bright metal sticking up out of the middle of it?
That's called a blower or a supercharger.
Okay. Well, I was talking about even below that.
Well, that's a 496 cubic inch big block Chevy.
And to put a supercharger on that, that's really adding a lot more to it.
It most certainly does.
What have you got for top speed on it? Have you ever found out?
I don't have enough room locally to open it up, and I really don't want to tick it, but it's fast.
Have you ever thought of taking it up maybe to Epping to see what it does on the track up there?
It will go to Epping when it's done. It has to have a roll cage installed. It has to fit a certain criteria to go down the track, so I have to get that done.
Well, I wasn't necessarily thinking of the competition, but do they have like an open time up there when you can just go up and test them?
You can, but you have to fit to the rules. So at a certain speed or time, you have to have certain equipment.
Right.
And
Okay, so that answers that question. No, don't take your street cars up there and expect to do something with them.
street cars are fine. You could take any of these cars here that'll run sub 12s, 13s, all day long. That's not a problem. You get to where this car will run in the low 10s, hopefully high 9s, then you're starting to look at safety equipment that has to be put in there.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you don't want something going wrong at those kind of speeds.
No, at 135 miles an hour, you don't want to crash.
Okay, so what else is there that you've got here on this that would be of interest to folks?
Well, it's got a straight front axle. That gives us the gasser look, and this is how cars were built and raced back in the 60s, early 70s. They thought the way that's tilted back like that, the weight transfer would be already on the back wheels, so you'd get better traction. It's got a high-performance transmission in it with a stall brake. It's like a clutch with an automatic. Hold the button, floor it, bring it up to $4,000, let the button go. It's like dropping a clutch. So that's in there. It's got a Ford 9-inch rear end with a 430 gear, so it's quick off the line. It's built to go.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, I don't know if I'd be able to exist through that kind of a sudden acceleration.
Well, maybe later I'll take you for a ride.
He wants to kill me.
Oh, no, not that, no.
Okay, can we talk about the interior a little bit, maybe,
Sure,
too?
what would you like to know?
What have you got?
The interior is really low-key. It's a bench seat out of an S10, direct bolt in. All we did was make a prop for it to fit down on the floor. It's just got the necessary gauges you need, the shifter to shift it, and the steering wheel to steer it. It's very, very subtle, nothing in there special, and that's how it is.
Okay, so it's just the bare basic comforts.
Bare minimums. No AC in that one.
And you don't have to worry about matching fabric to something else that you've got in there.
Eventually be a tuck and rolled interior, black tuck and roll, but I haven't gotten there yet.
Well, tuck and roll. Who can you find that does that these days?
Oh, believe it or not, you can still have a tuck and roll interior done. Sure.
Yeah, because that was, you know, one of the big things about the I can't remember. It was some movie from a few years ago where they had the Chevy with the tuck and roll interior.
Yeah, he wanted to go to Mexico to get his tuck and roll done, and he was worried that they were going to fill his interior with sheep manure. I know the movie. Yeah.
I don't think that was the one I had in mind.
Okay. All right.
That's all right.
But he went to get a tuck and roll interior as well.
Okay. Anything else you want to say? Because I just
No,
ran out of
I'm
questions.
just happy with the painter, the bodywork. Man, he knocked it out of the park. I couldn't have asked for anything better.
What color do you call that?
That's called Chalk Top Orange with 6 pounds of micro flake.
Yeah, well, I can see the microfleck is really standing out in there. This might be a interesting car to take to the Great Pumpkin Car Show in October.
I fully intend to be there.
Well, then I guess I'll see you there because I've been there every year just about.
I look forward to seeing you there.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too. Well, I found something here that may not literally qualify as an orphan, but I think it might fall into that category. This is Jay Hall. Jay, what is this car?
It's a replica 1965 Shelby Cobra.
And Shelby Cobra. Carroll Shelby was working for Ford, and he was doing a lot of designing there. And tell us a little bit about how this car came into being.
Well, I believe what Carroll tried to do was he got a couple of bodies from a company in England, company called Ace, and they made a car called an AC, which was a little British sports car with a small 4-cylinder motor. He brought these back, and he put big V8s in them with 4 speeds and basically made a crazy fast car out of them.
Well, that sounds like Carroll Shelby.
Who does?
I said, that sounds like Carroll Shelby.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So you told me that this is a kit, and you didn't put the kit together.
No, I bought it like this. I don't have the patience. I would not have the patience. But it's a kit from a company called Factory 5 down at Wareham.
Okay. Now, is there anything that you plan on doing to this over the years while you have it?
Probably not. Maybe some new tires. Pretty much done already.
Okay. Just the stuff that wears out normally?
Normal stuff, yeah. Normal wear and tear stuff, yeah.
How's it run?
Runs great.
It run fast?
Scares me.
Well, then I don't think I'll ask you for a ride in it. Okay. Are you a member of any car clubs around?
No, not really.
You're just kind of an aficionado?
No, I wouldn't even call me that. I just like cars. I've always have, and
well, that may be all you need to do to be an aficionado.
Right.
I don't have a car that qualifies to do anything for these things here, but I love coming to these shows.
Sure, me too. I come to every one that I can, so gives me something to do.
Well, maybe one of these days we'll see you flying by us on the road somewhere.
Oh, maybe I'll make some noise when I leave here today.
Thanks a lot, Jay.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Just to show you that these aren't all orphan cars here, we got a little row here with some of the most popular collectible classic cars going. T-Bird from the 1950s, Chevy Corvette, and up here we have a Monte Carlo 502. All of these are very popular collector's cars. They're muscle cars that people have been collecting for years. And as John would say, they're not orphans, but they're nice cars. So I hope you enjoyed being here with us at Classics for a Cause at the Whitman VFW. And keep your eyes peeled because we'll be coming up with more episodes of Classic Car Chat in the future. So thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time at Classic Car Chat.